3, 2, 1, 8.
On KBLA, James Farr's on the mic, lifting up the people, keeping hope in sight. With Altadena spirit, he fights the good fight, speaking truth to power, shining the light. Flames try to break us, but we're standing tall. Lost our homes, but we ain't lost at all. Through the smoke and the ashes, we see the sun. Altadena's fight has just begun. Begun. We'll rise again. We'll build it strong. Through the struggle, yes, we belong. Hand in hand, through dust and pain, Altadena's heart remains.
Live from Lamert Park, KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, and I am your host, James Farr. This is the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation the deadly and devastating Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, which took place January 7th, 2025. Today is June 7th, 2025, and we're 5 months out from that event. I want to thank you for allowing me into your cars, into your living room. Perhaps you're in the garage or in your backyard. You're, planning some activities over the weekend and out and about. I appreciate you allowing me into your space. Before I tell you about today's program, let me invite you to follow us on social media. You can follow us at KBLA Talk 1580. You can follow me, James Farr Live, and we're across all social media platforms. You can always like, comment, share, encourage someone else to tap in. And if you've missed any of our previous episodes, I invite you to go over to YouTube, or our podcasts are available wherever you find, wherever you get your podcasts. I just happen to go over to the station's YouTube page. All 13 of our previous episodes, they're there. They're there for you to listen to and catch up on what we have been discussing every week here on KBLA Talk 1580. We're going to get into some things today. I think this is going to be one of the most honest and much needed conversations coming 5 months out of this event. Question remains, and many folks are still asking is, could more have been done to fight these fires, right? Retired Captain Addington Stewart, who is the former president of the International Black Firefighters Association. He's going to be joining me in a little bit, and I want to get inside of the science of the fire. I want to kind of walk us through what those first responders were faced with. Many have told stories. I've heard some pretty harrowing stories of people running from flames that were, less than a football field, or perhaps a little bit more than a football field. And for those of y'all that can't frame that up, that's shorter than your block, your street. I want to understand what that experience is like for firefighters, and hopefully we can have a little bit more understanding what's happening here in Los Angeles, these raids and this militarized federal law enforcement. I think it's important that we just say, for the record, this is it is just, it's disgusting what's happening. But this is America, and we're documenting these things, documenting what's happening right here in our community. And I think it is appropriate in this context as we are continuing to talk about the fire. And speaking of the fire, it's just something about this that it won't leave me alone. I'm curious. I want to learn more about it, but it's kind of like in my bones now, and I want to learn more, and that's why I'm going to have retired Captain Stewart on. Shout out to the class of 2025, our graduates, students in Pasadena, Altadena area, Blair, Muir, John Muir High School, Pasadena City College. And then a big congratulations. Y'all don't know a whole lot about me personally, but I am a father, and I do have the brightest, smartest, cutest, funniest, wittiest high school senior who just graduated, and I am so proud of her. She's headed off to an HBCU in the fall. Kennedy, I love you. I'm super proud of you, how you've had to manage through a whole lot of the things of being a young teenage girl and having a dad who sometimes is, I can't say that word on air. Important to point out that next week, District 5 Supervisor Catherine Barger will be in the seat. And it's a conversation that we also have been waiting to have. But I do have on the line retired Captain Addington Stewart. I want to just bring him in real quickly, and then we'll keep this conversation moving forward. Captain Stewart, you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
How you doing this morning? I appreciate you. You're a couple of time zones ahead of me. I appreciate you taking some time to kind of walk us through this this very important conversation. But how did we meet? I think that's important for the context, and then we'll move it forward.
Well, simply, I guess it wasn't so simply, but I came to Pasadena to support the previous fire chief, Bertrell Washington, who ended up being fired.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we met, and you were one of the reporters on the case. And we had a conversation about that entire issue. And I think it was the hearing. At their hearing is where we actually met.
Right.
At a county hearing. Yeah.
Right. Down at City Hall, and we talked about that. So when we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to take a deeper dive into the deadly fire, the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. I have retired Captain Addington Stewart on the line, and you're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580. Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Won't somebody please stop me? Yeah. My soul is on fire, and I can't take this pain away. Got me running, got me running, got me running, got me running, got me running. My soul is on fire.
KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising. I'm your host, James Farr, and we are sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. Yep, my soul is definitely on fire. That's Anthony Hamilton, and I have on the line a retired Captain Addington Stewart, who served decades as a firefighter in the Midwest region, and he is the former president of the Black Professional International Firefighters Association, and I invited Captain Stewart on to understand the science of the fire. Right, a lot of people believe, and I'm gonna get straight to it, but I'm going to gingerly step around it for just a second, because I understand that we are dealing with the intersection of emotion, what we know or believe, and perhaps what science may tell us about this hell of a fire that devastated the Altadena community 5 months ago today. Exactly 5 months ago today. Captain Stewart, you there, brother?
Yes, sir.
So, we know that the fire initial reports were after about 6 p.m. The initial area, and you've been here, but you don't know the area quite like that. And so I'm gonna paint this for folks. This is an area in the Eaton Canyon, just above the nature reserve, and an area that had been identified, one, as a high risk area for a brush fire, two, because of the rain and precipitation the previous year. Vegetation was a lot more dense, and then three, and probably most importantly, this area had not burned in decades, and so it was ripe for this type of combustion under certain conditions. And that's what we initially believe. This is what the evidence is showing, is that Southern California Edison was negligent, and perhaps what we see on video is their power utility pole, a decommissioned pole, ignite this fire. What are firefighters dealing with at that moment, Captain Stewart?
Well, one, transmission lines like that carrying a lot of voltage through it, firefighters have to wait on Edison to disengage that power before they can actually get in certain areas of it. So that's one of your issues. And if it started knocking out other systems down the line, if they were falling or due to the fire, wires were down, those are some other challenges. And I know the way things are set up, they're keenly aware that if they're out there in the field fighting that type of fire, especially near power lines, that they have to make sure that power's been de-energized.
So because this, it started as a brush fire, right? And I think people here, and it's kind of went out on hashtags, LA wildfires, right? Yeah, this started in the footsteps of the Angeles National Forest. I get that. But quickly, with those straight winds or those, almost 100-mile-an-hour hurricane force winds, this quickly turned into an urban fire. But I've heard this thing. I mean, it's a strike team that they would send first into kind of this brush area. What is a strike team, and what would they be tasked to do?
Well, strike teams go out and do specific tasks in those types of fires, and especially in wildland fires, you have to use what's called the National Incident Management System, and within that system, you got logistics, operations planning, and in operations is where those folks are tasked and tasked and become a task force to hit certain areas as large groups. It's not just one fire truck responding anymore. So they put together teams, and then they like a strike force to target whatever area it is that they have them to target.
I mean, like
that's the short version.
That's the short version. So, and because I'm simple, brother. I mean, Captain. I'm sorry, I'm Captain, brother. I speak in cursive a lot on here, so Captain, brother, right. Captain. Is that 50 firefighters, 100 firefighters? Like, what does that look like? Because we had multiple fires in the region, but what typically was the strike team look like?
Well, initially, you probably just had fire trucks responding until they could organize and bring more firefighters in. As large as L.A. City with L.A. County and the surrounding areas, I'm sure their mutual aid is pretty seamless when they come together for incidents like these.
Mm-hmm.
And with incidents like these, as they gather, they set up an incident command system. They set up emergency operations center where you have the mayor and all of those folks at. But then the firefighters are tasked operationally, and they get into a certain area that they can be in and be safe and respond in multiple ways. And then, they take others with them. Sometimes, generally, there's police within these task force. You might have the water people. You might have electric people. You might have the gas people that also may respond with some of the task force. It's just depending on the timing that they're in and how long this fire has been burning before you get all of that stuff organized and put together. And then it's going to hit the task. But with that volume of fire, I don't know who could have caught up and kept up with that.
I want to get there because, again, this idea that it was a forest fire versus, and maybe you can help us understand what in a kind of simple way. What's the difference between a forest fire and an urban fire? These were houses and structures.
Yeah, the difference is it's just houses and structures. That's the difference. They burn the same. When it's enough wind feeding it oxygen, of course, fire burns. It's getting more oxygen the faster it burns.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the element of life safety that's even more prevalent because there are people homes. Now that's the only difference. Now one of our first priorities is life safety. So trying to get people out through evacuations. That's why you all do the evacuations and all of those things. Sending officers in, anybody that can tell somebody to get out. Now that's a challenge because people generally don't want to leave their homes. And if you get one of those commands, you got to go and then live to see another day.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was one of these types of fires that's one of them 100-year
they call them 100-year events, yeah, and 18 people lost their lives.
That has never happened in our time,
right?
Right.
So,
yeah, that's what they're up against. The other element of that is when it's just in the forest fire, in the forest areas, you add the life safety area, which means our priority is the preservation of life, the end property.
Now, I talked with other firefighters, some who were on that particular deployment, and others who were in the Palisades on deployment, and have serviced or worked fires up and down the state. And one of the things that they shared with me is that the only thing that is consistent in fighting a fire is your desire to make it out safely and fight it safely, because each fire is different. Tell me about like the weather systems that they describe, these fire tornadoes and fire burning. In this case, because of the winds pushing it to the south, as opposed to that fire burning uphill, it pushed down. Help us understand the science in that, the weather systems that these fires create.
Well, I'm sure who's ever in that EOC is in constant contact with who's monitoring the winds and the weather. And because everybody knows those Santa Ana winds were in play, basically, as firefighters, they got to be behind the wind and fight this thing from the back unburnt side to the burnt side, or where the fire is actually at. And with that volume of fire, you basically got to get out of the way, especially if you don't know if the wind's going to shift. So those are all of the things when you're talking about managing firefighters' lives. If the firefighters get caught up, of course, they can't save anybody or direct anybody on how to get out. But the dynamic of the wind is truly an obstacle to firefighting, especially when you get the other obstacle of a lack of water. And that's another story I know in this as well.
Right.
But if you got a large volume of fire in the room, you can't take a bucket and put it out.
I mean,
You know,
because
if something was on, yeah.
go ahead, Captain. No, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's just on a smaller scale to just give you an idea. A whole room is burning with all its contents in it, and all you can bring to it is a bucket of water.
A bucket of water to a room on fire. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're not going to due to the temperatures in the fire and the heat of the fire and it's steady building. You really got to get enough water there, or you allow it to burn out. And I'm sure in some areas they allow some parts to burn out. And
so there's two issues here. One, there was the water supply to the hydrants, right? And then there is the water that's actually on the trucks, right?
Correct.
Between the two of those, one ran out, and eventually all of it ran out, right? But is a municipality, kind of a municipal fire department agency, are they equipped to handle a fire on this scale?
Well, I thought the county chief spoke to that well, and I don't know his exact words that he had stated. And I remember reading that article. This was a 100-year, never before seen event. Mm-hmm. And then if you think about it, as each house burnt, then pipes became exposed. Mm-hmm. Gas, electric, and water. Mm-hmm. And so there was no shut off, so you're losing water that way, which is lowering the pressure. So if you're trying to get more water out of something that doesn't have any water because the pressure's down, you're not going to be able to get it. And then you're in the hills as well out there. You're going to lose water. Your pressure's not going to be enough to help you sustain fighting that volume of fire. It's just a fact. Can't do it.
And I want to go back to something because I'm trying to understand it a little bit differently, because people describe seeing, and it makes sense to me, saying that they saw the fire department going past them and kind of up the hill, up into, and that's because they were, as you said, they want the fire or the wind behind them.
Yes, but in that instance, it's two things. They were being assigned to do something. So I've been on calls just when there's not nothing going on. Depending on what the issue is, you got to either stop and request permission to address something. Mm-hmm. And if they tell you to go on to your original assignment, we'll send something else. And that's a little different because, it might just be somebody waved you down and they had a minor car accident. Well, you're on the way to a call. How many people wave a fire truck down when it's on the call? When it's a major disaster. Uh-huh. So everybody wanted them to stop, but their assignment was to try to get ahead of this fire and get it out. And if they stop it, whoever they pass by, that task of that particular task force wouldn't be met. Mm. And everything was messed up. So if they had 200 task force, they probably out there attacking that fire. That still probably wasn't enough. And especially when you're losing water. There's no need to put nobody in danger if you can't get water. And because of the winds, of course, you couldn't get your helicopters.
Right.
Planes to fly.
Right. Well, we're going to talk more about that, Captain Stewart, when we come forward. I want to continue this conversation and really kind of understand, are firefighters required to fight the fire, right? And we'll get more into the science of everything. Stay with us. News is up next. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising, only on KBLA Talk 1580, and we are sponsored by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm riding in your car. You turn on the radio. You're pulling me close. I just say no. I say I don't like it.
KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising, and I am your host, James Farr. We're sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers, and having this conversation with retired Captain Addington Stewart, who spent more than 3 decades on the front line fighting fires, as well as moving himself up the ranks in his local municipality in the Midwest, and then also served as he was the former president of the International Professional Black Firefighters Association. I speak in cursive, Captain Stewart, so you have to forgive me when I say Brother Stewart or Brother Captain Stewart, because that's just kind of how we do it. So I'm gonna keep it as formal as I can, Brother Stewart. There I go again, Captain Stewart. Hi, good morning again, brother.
Yeah, good morning, and it's all good.
Absolutely, man. So really, like this burning question, that folks in the community have is, could more have been done to fight these fires? Based on, your experience and what you know, what you've read, what you've seen, what you've heard, could more have been done?
I would be. I couldn't be contradictory to anything. You can't tell. This is nobody's seen this. I've never experienced nothing like this in my career. We done had multiple buildings burning, but that ain't a whole neighborhood. I don't think it was. I think they did everything that they could do based on those winds, the fire, what happens to a water system, what actually happened to personnel when you fight fires that long and that hard. And you got to understand some other things. Some guys were at work that couldn't go home and check on their homes. Then you had some guys who were off that had to check on their homes before they can even in. I mean, it's a whole lot of errors, and that went all the way around. Even those now the outside entities that come in, that's a good genuine help because they're not impacted directly or personally. But you had all of those other things going on as well. And so, I couldn't say that, and I wouldn't say that. And it's not just because I'm a firefighter. It's just because, when you're in the depth of something like that, everybody can come back in Monday Night Quarterback and have something to say about what might have went wrong and what went well. And they do that. I'm sure they'll be required to initiate or give some type of reporting of all of the endeavors and everything that they incurred. And that's one of the reasons they set up that system, so they can track everything they're doing. How many personnel, where they were deployed. They can explain to you all how they were deployed and why they were deployed, where they were deployed.
Right.
So, there's too many variables and there's too much stuff there.
Well, okay, so I'm still, one of the first things I saw when I went up there, right, the immediate days afterwards were some homes untouched, home after home after home burned, and then in some areas just entire annihilation, right? As in a 360 view, as far as the eye can see. In some cases, nothing left but masonry structures, metal framing, and things that could not combust or did not burn. And one car completely torched, another car just again pristine. Something that that people kind of playing with this idea, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole or kind of down that line of thought of conspiracy and things like that. But why is it that a house A burns, house B and C don't, and then the remaining 23 in the alphabet are gone? How does that happen?
No rhyme or reason. It could be the type of structure it was, if it was a wood frame versus a brick home. It could have been where the heart of the fire was at and the intensity of it as it passed through that particular block. I don't know if you know it. I know you guys have been busy with your own disaster, but right here in my city, and my home was one that was just recently damaged. tornado that's here in St. Louis. And it's the same thing. My house had a limited damage. The house right next door to me, the entire roof, the front, facade was gone. And then all around that community, there was a block. There were 3-4 blocks where it was total devastation. And it's similar. Just was wind. It wasn't fire. But there was total devastation. And then in the middle of that block where it was total devastation, one house didn't get hit. I mean, I don't know if you call it luck, call it a blessing, what you call it, but there's no rhyme or reason. If I was the smartest man on earth, I don't know if I could figure that one out.
What about vegetation, right? I mean, there's trees because, many of the neighborhoods, like we have beautiful oak trees, there's pine trees. I mean, there's there's an arborist buffet of trees and different things. Why don't those things, like that's what people can't figure out. Why is the house gone and my rose is still there?
And again, no rhyme or reason. Maybe the fire turned, who knows? Maybe the wind shifted as they got to the bush. They have these winds create tornadoes. I know y'all heard that in some of this discussion. And then that fire just slips everywhere. And then the embers are landing. That's going everywhere and causing other fires.
And how important, because
it's a phenomenon, so to speak.
Because they describe some of the homes as burning from the inside out through the ventilation systems that allow the ember spray. I've heard that term thrown around, an ember spray.
And that type of fire, and I've seen it when it's real windy like that. We had it was right near Halloween. People just were setting stuff on fire here in St. Louis, and it was a windy night that night, and we were getting fires blocks away just from embers flying. And it's just where the wind takes it. If it gets an ignition source, and then there you go. That's it. And when I say an ignition source, it might be that vegetation you were just describing. It might be the house and not the rose bush. Whatever it attaches itself to, and if another heat's following it, it's going to burn. And maybe it's God's way of nature saving it. I mean, that's the phenomenon of it. You just don't know what it's going to do. That's the scariest part for firefighters as well.
This is that hard question I thought I was going to avoid, when we came forward and before we moved forward, before news and everything. I know with the case of police are not constitutionally required to put their life on the line to save you. And you talked about safety. And I just recall a community member just crying about that engine passing them up like they were, they use the language triaging their home. Are firefighters constitutionally required to save a structure, property, or life?
Yes, and they were hitting the one. Yes, and they were hitting the one. It's how do you determine it? Your task was assigned. And I think I described it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
You got to request permission to get off your task, because the task you're going to is to save someone's life. And as hard as it may seem, our mission and tactically how we're going to attack this thing has to be met. And whether it's a shooting, whether it's a major event where multiple injuries are at, you triage, you go to where the worst is, and then it works its way back. It might sound cruel, but we got to try to get the worst. And then the next below the worst, and then the next below the less worst.
Right.
That's just the nature of this beast. And again, when you're in a major fire like that one, it wasn't on purpose. It was because somebody was in worse shape.
Right.
And if you were able to walk out there and live, somebody else may have lost their life.
Right.
And that's what triaging an incident or triage, and we hear triage related to medical service, but
right.
We triage every incident when it's in that form, and tactically where they send them is to try to stop it from getting to that one person's house that they passed.
Well, Captain
That hadn't burnt down yet.
Captain Stewart, I'm hard on moving us forward, and I so appreciate you carving out some time for us on this weekend. And even though you are dealing with some things on your own, I appreciate you, brother. And I'm going to check in with you. That's retired Captain Addington Stewart, former president of the International Professional Black Firefighters Association, and we've try to understand a little bit more about the science and fighting a fire and kind of what that perspective is. When we come forward, I got some updates for you only on KBLA Talk 1580. We got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
There was a man named Jeremiah, and one day the Spirit fell on Jeremiah. He began to act strange. Some of his friends asked him, "What's wrong with you?" And he looked up and told them these words right here: "It's just like fire shut up in my bones." Just like
KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising, and I'm your host, James Farr, and we are sponsored by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. I know y'all been hearing the promotions. Our KBLA Talk 1580 4th anniversary event is happening very, very fast, y'all, and seats are at all 4 of our special events are getting tight. And if you haven't registered, I want to encourage you right now to go to the KBLA Talk 1580 website and register right now. It's our 4th anniversary, and we are celebrating with you. And if you're planning to join us at one of our 4 events, 4 years, 4 events, the Backyard Barbecue, which takes place. Well, let me back up and run it in order. On Wednesday, the 18th, Taffy Smiley is hosting a Climate Justice Symposium. And then on that actual holiday, June 10th, we are hosting a Backyard Barbecue. And then there's June 21st, our very own Dominique DePrima, the State of Black Women, and there's also the event over at the Beehive with the Empowerment Congress. So the whole host of events, all free, like free 99 free. Make sure you get over to the KBLA website to register. Tickets, well, it's free, but space is limited, and we want to see you. All your favorite KBLA hosts will be in attendance. I definitely will be there, and I'm looking forward to meeting y'all. I am always outside. As I told you a little bit earlier, Supervisor Catherine Barger, the 5th District Supervisor, she's going to be live in studio next Saturday, and I want to hear from you. You can email me at convolive@gmail. You can DM me. Station has, if you haven't already downloaded the KBLA app, hit that microphone. What do you want me to ask her? What is it that you want to know now 5 months past this event? Again, next Saturday, Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barger is going to be right here. We're going to have a critical and important conversation as we focus on these roots, the resilience, the recovery, the rebuilding, and ultimately the reunion of the community of Altadena. When we come forward, it's kind of moving into that space. This thing goes by real fast. We got a message in the music in our Saturday slap, only on KBLA Talk 1580, your ancestors' favorite radio station.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising. I'm James Farr, your host, and we are sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. I told you this thing goes by pretty quickly, and just reflecting on that conversation with retired Captain Addington Stewart, as I call him, Brother Addington Stewart, and spent well over 3 decades fighting fires, and I wanted to make sure that we were able to bring that perspective into today's conversation, just ahead of Supervisor Catherine Barger, who will be here live in studio. And again, I reach out to me if there's something you want to ask her. We will open up the phones as well. Want to hear exactly what it is y'all want us to talk about. But at any rate, we're going to move into, that part of that program where that message is in the music. And, as I was saying earlier, it's like something that just won't leave me alone. And I, just keep wanting to understand more about how we end up in this situation. But then also at that same time, I'm tired of learning, right? But I know through this, we will all come out a little bit better than what we were before, and certainly come out as pure gold.
Though we are tried like silver in the fire, we come out as pure gold. We must be refined, and then we need a shine. We come out as pure gold. There is a process to our fulfillingness. There is significance to every experience. From each trial we learn. We learn.
I'm sick of learning, though. And it seems like our story here in this country is that we continue. And I just get pissed off. I got to stop saying that. I'm going to get in trouble. But it just gets me that, the black experience sometimes it requires you to play with fire. And we get burned, man. But we do come out better than we were, and we come out as pure gold. Angela, Red Ock, Wright, and the Legal Lens is up next. She has an amazing program ahead of us. You need to stay with us, especially with all of what is happening in this country, with immigration and understanding what folks' rights are. Big shout out to Kim, Reggie, Nyla, Simeon on the boards, Tiana, who brings us our graphics. Listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising, and I'm your host, James Farr. Until we talk again, as always, agape.